Hey, Quicksters, it's Quick Take. I'm here. I'm Susie with my co host, James. How are you, James?
I'm fantastic, Susie. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Although, this has been just a weird time. I've talked to a lot of people about so much with the economy and everything that's happening.
Mm,
There's so many changes within organizations, and just got off the phone with an executive who they've gone through a few layoffs this year, and he was saying that they're probably facing another. And it made me
mm.
think, what do you do? How do you survive that? And what do you do once it's over?
Yeah, I mean these are challenging conversations. I mean, certainly, I've said to numerous folks that I've coached, you don't want to work for a company that's good at this,
Oh, that's good.
because ultimately, it is something that you hope doesn't happen very often. But I think when I think about what a reduction in force or eliminating a big group of people. Those things happen whether it's a layoff or whether you even have just to get somebody leaves or you have to let somebody go.
Yeah.
The good approach is apply across all of those scenarios. I just think when you do something large like this, you have to be a little more thoughtful because it does impact so many people. And so when I think about a layoff, I think it's so important that leaders are thoughtful and really consider how they want to respond after the fact.
Yeah.
Certainly we could talk about how you respond or how you deal with it before. We can certainly talk about how you deal with the folks who are getting let go. But I think that the area that I'd like to focus on are really, the team that remains, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think that's good. And I sometimes when people have to go through it and they're the leader that's in charge, it feels
Mhm.
so emotional because you feel bad. So I think I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but even shifting into that solution-based move forward and kind of giving yourself that permission to
Sure.
turn the page, if you will.
Well, I think there's two things here, right? There is you as a leader have to acknowledge that you have a fiduciary responsibility to the firm and to your
Yeah.
clients to move forward. So that's real. But you also have a human responsibility to your team to manage that too. And I think
Hmm.
oftentimes we will sacrifice one or the other. But my recommendation is you have to embrace both. Um,
Mm,
and if you think about it from this point of view, your staff is a diverse group of people and how they respond to a situation like this is going to be different. Some are
yeah.
going to need some more connection with you,
TLC.
maybe some more,
Yeah.
yeah, a little TLC. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Mm,
And some other just want to move on. And so you as a leader kind of have to address all
yeah.
those. And I think it's good practice to do so. So, if you just acknowledge the fact that you have to do a couple of hard things and move forward, then I think your team will be better off. And I think you can move beyond it.
So what you're saying is make some space and decide how much space the team needs to kind of digest or just understand so that they can
Right.
kind of get kind of
Well, exactly
refocus.
right. Exactly right. Let me jump in. I think, the first
Okay.
thing that you have to remember is that you're a leader, right? You are the leader. And so people are
Yeah.
going to look to you during difficult times.
Yeah.
And during those difficult times, the only option you have is to be honest and to be transparent.
Hmm.
So my first piece of advice is after a layoff, people want to hear, we are done.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going, and the action has been completed. You need to get people to start focusing on the work and not being concerned about however the announcements were being made. Invariably that information is going to run through the company like wildfire, and whether it's through Teams or text messages or people getting walked into a certain conference room, everybody will suddenly be on edge. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to sit down with the team and say, we are done, and then explain why the action happened. It's absolutely critical that your team has good talking points and that your leadership comes together to ensure you're all speaking from the same hymnal, if you will. And so, that moment of opportunity there for you to be the leader, be transparent, and communicate to the team is so important. And that's really got
Hmm.
to be the first thing that you do.
Yeah. I think that's so good. And being just helping people understand, even if you don't know for sure
Yep.
what is happening in the next upcoming months, you know that for right now, this is it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just
yeah. You
assuring
never,
people.
you always ask, or will get asked, will there be layoffs in the future?
Yeah.
Of course there will be layoffs in the future. Of
Yeah.
course. Well, I can't say that with 100% certainty, but 98% of companies will do some sort of layoff in the future of 1,000 years. So ultimately, a leader is going to say, look, I can't promise you anything. I can tell you this activity,
Yep.
that this action is complete. And so I think, so you need to get that on the table. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be clear, you want to be transparent, and you want to communicate to the team the current status.
Yeah.
But then
And
on the
then
tail end of that, go ahead, Sue.
no, I was gonna say, how long do you let them stay there? Like, do you let them ask a lot of questions, or am I jumping
No,
ahead?
no, you're absolutely dead on. And I think that that communication is tight. It's short and it's clear.
Hmm.
But then the second one is you have to flip the coin and start listening. You have to allow
Okay.
them the opportunity to be emotional. You have to let them go through their process. So it's exactly as you described. Everybody's going to go through that on their own in their own way. Some will want to bring it up in a meeting and be very frustrated. Some will be want some
Hmm.
one-on-one time with you. But this is where you have to be just a listener. You have to allow them the opportunity to process this situation. So you've given them all the information you have, and then you need to let them go through that kind of conversation. Some of it's going to be rational, some of it's going to be irrational. Some will have blame that they're pointing at, but at the end of the day, your job is to ensure that they get the opportunity to process this, because that's what a good leader does.
It's interesting as I flash back to times years ago. I think
Hmm.
it was not done that way. I think it
No,
was like announce, don't ask any questions, move on. And then what
yeah,
happened was that just creates so much anxiety, and then
yep,
the rumor mill and all the talk. So like giving that space for people to be able to process eliminates, or doesn't eliminate, decreases the amount of kind of the chatter, the noise.
right. And I think in a lot of cases, um, you know, this situation notwithstanding, we have talked at length about how you create a safe place for people to work, people for them to feel comfortable there, wanting to be part of the organization, and this is just part and parcel of that. If this should not be the first or only time you listen to your folks. This should feel like something that you've done in the past.
Yeah.
Projects don't go well. Maybe somebody has resigned. Though you're always going to be doing things and having ceremonies, if you will, to listen to your folks. This should just feel like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is one of those things you certainly are setting the foundation throughout throughout the year, or previous to the layoff perhaps. But it is key for them to understand that you're there and you're supporting them.
Yeah, and it makes me think, and if you're sitting here thinking, I already do that, good for you.
Hmm.
That and that
Absolutely.
should become an automatic thing that you do in, like you said, in anything that happens in any transition, is making that space for others so that they feel heard. That's the
A-
key.
Absolutely. And I think that especially in a layoff or a riff, this is hard, right? This is where
Mhm.
you as a leader are going to be emotionally vulnerable, and you're going to have to hear and listen to people being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
This is something that's often overlooked and avoided. I've heard stories of leaders that go in and say that the layoff is complete, and then they close their door, or they disappear. And that this is the opportunity, this is the
Yeah.
moment in which you can continue to build on a difficult situation. As hard as it is, never let a good crisis go to waste. And this is a time in which you can really bring your team together.
That's such a James. Never let a good crisis go to waste. What's a third?
I think the third one really is builds on that a little bit. It was you need to reassess the work, right? Odds are pretty
Yeah.
good that if you've been impacted, that then things are going to change. And just to simply to say, look, everybody, now we're going to figure it out. Let's just keep the work going. Look, as a leader, I think it's important for us to put a strategy together to figure out how we're going to respond. If it's a large reduction in force, you just simply don't have the same capacity. And even if there isn't a broader strategy within the firm to address a decreased in capacity, you need to have an honest dialogue with your team to make sure that they feel like they're heard. There's nothing more insidious that will undermine your team's ability to be successful than not addressing the fact that now you have 5, 10, 15% less people. And if you don't talk about this, they will find a way to talk about this amongst themselves, and it will result in poor morale, poor performance, poor throughput. It will be an issue. Now, you may not have a solution, and it may end up being something as simple as we have to suck it up and move on. But having the dialogue,
Yeah.
talking about the micro adjustments you have to make, talking about the realities of it is super important.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have that conversation with your people, you're really going to undermine your relationship with them.
What about having kind of your plan half baked and say, or maybe fully baked, but you say, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what as I've quickly assessed where we're going to, how we're going to level up to
Respond.
handle
Yeah.
this or respond. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? What do you think about that approach?
I think it's super important. Look, if you're going to do a layoff, and you're behind closed doors early on, you should already be talking about the implications, right? If we're going to
Yeah.
eliminate these 3 people, these 10 people, this office, whatever the number is, you need to know and go in at the boardroom table to say this is what's not going to get done, or these are the implications
Yeah.
of doing so. So you probably have a plan. But boy, your point is so good that if you can engage the folks in the dialogue after the fact, that's super important. One thing we don't talk about and didn't discuss up front is really, survivor's remorse, and that is such a real thing. And the
Yeah.
folks that are still behind are going to they will have guilt. They will feel bad. They know the people who have been let go or eliminated. They know them personally, and they're going to be thinking about that. So engaging them in the solutioning, engaging them in the conversation after the fact is a really good way of helping them process it.
Yeah. It made me also think that those emotions could be high for you too. You might be thinking
Absolutely.
about all the context of what that means for that person. And so
Hmm.
that having a plan and even thinking about how you're going to say it is really important so that you don't get off track or you don't
Right.
make it, put gas on the fire, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for, this type of situation, it's great to say, like, there's 3 bullets that I want to talk about,
Yeah.
immediately after and hit these 3 things. It is easy for, if you haven't done a lot of layoffs or this is an emotionally charged situation, that's when things go awry. That's when we say stuff that we don't mean or we have
Yeah.
to clean up later. This is not the time to throw the company under the bus. This is not the time to throw your
No.
boss under the bus. This is the time to rally the troops
Yep.
and help them come together as a team to deal with an adverse situation. So yeah, emotions are high, but I think as you can engage people to keep them involved and help them be part of the solution, I think you can move through it.
I think that's really great. And they need you to do that. So that's
Absolutely.
how
This is
they
when
need you.
leadership is super
Mhm.
important. And
Yeah.
this is where when stress behaviors happen, when people are not at the feeling in a difficult place, this is when people are really lean on leadership.
That's fair. All right. Tell us the 3.
Number one, open with transparency and honesty. Be clear and communicate to the team what's going on, when it's starting, when it's ending. Tell them everything you know. That's going to pay you dividends. And then second, listen. Allow them the opportunity to communicate with you what they're feeling, how they're feeling. You never know exactly where they're going to be coming from, and so to get that on the table is healthy for them and may allow you to solve some problems that you didn't see were coming. And then third, engage with them on the way that you're doing the work. Assess the outcomes and the results of this layoff and determine what kind of work doesn't need to get done. Be creative. Maybe adjust the org a little bit. Maybe move some people around. Maybe use this as an opportunity to elevate some people or to break up
Yeah.
some
Love that.
legacy organizational structures that no longer fit.
Mhm.
As I said, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, and get that buy-in. That's
Yep.
good. Have a
Yep.
plan. Don't just let it happen and show up.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where plans are worthless, but planning is essential, and I think you got to go into it with some conversation.
You dropped another one. People are going to have a pencil when they
Well, that's
listen
not
to
mine. I
this.
think that's Eisenhower's.
Well, fair, but still, you're dropping them.
Okay, I got him.
Well, thank you, James. That was really helpful. Thank you, Quicksters, for being here with us. James and I are both on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what's on your mind. We just love to hear from our community. So thanks for being here. And until next time, just know that we appreciate you.